Last night, Charleston City Council unanimously voted to take down the John C. Calhoun statue on Marion Square. Today, I talk one-on-one with City Council member Harry Griffin for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Harry J. Griffin, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Hey Quintin, how are you, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing just great. Obviously, you're a Charleston City Council member and a leader here in this community. And I know that obviously Charleston City Council last night unanimously voted to take down the John C. Calhoun statue.
Yes, sir.
When you look back to last night to right now, what still plays in your mind?
So I am happy with the result, but I'm not happy with the methodology. I wish we would have planned it a little bit better. It seemed kind of like we tried to do a sneak attack last night to take it down in the middle of the night, and it just didn't work. And here we are 14 hours later, and it's still up. And it's become quite the spectacle. You know, ever since the announcement last week, tensions have been high. You know, everybody has an opinion on it. It's a polarizing issue. I voted to take it down because I thought it was a good compromise to move it to a museum locally and allow a historian to tell the full tale of John C. Calhoun, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I don't want this to be a slippery slope, and I'm not going to vote to take anything else down. I don't think there's any other monuments or statues that point out, in my opinion, that deserve to be moved. However, this particular one in a very, very public park, even though it's a private park technically, you know, it was deeply affecting a lot of people. And part of my job as a city councilman is to not only think about my district, but to think about all of the people that live here and all of the people that visit here. There's definitely a large population of people that visit and they want to see the history. But there's also a large amount of people that live here that had to walk by that statue every day, and it brought really, really bad memories of their ancestors. And I thought it was appropriate that we move it to a museum for that reason.
What methodology, Harry, would you have used?
I would have done this thing probably 180 degrees differently. I would have done all of the planning. After I made sure that council approved and we had an idea. I don't think that coming in the middle of the night to take it down is, you know, a reward or some big win. I think what would have been better in my eyes would be to bring it up to council, have council discuss it, have the community have an opportunity to discuss it, vote on it, and then once voted on, then develop a plan for moving it. As of today, we still have nowhere to put it. We have no MOUs in place with any museums or anything of that sort. And we're paying a large amount of money to take it down. I can't give you an exact figure because City Council was not included in that procurement decision, which is rare. And anything over $40,000, the mayor should not have discretion in approving that sort of money. It should have a council vote. And that just didn't happen this time around. I believe the mayor was calling the removal an emergency procurement decision. And so he went ahead and had the crane hired and the concrete cutting company hired. And, you know, all of this kind of happened behind the scenes without even my or other members of council's voice, or we didn't have the mayor's ear on this one. Maybe a few did, but I certainly did not. He had a plan in place that he wanted to follow, and you know, honestly, I would rather be in the loop because I had no idea it was coming down at midnight last night until about 7 p.m. last night.
I have a couple of questions, Harry. Were you all given, and I know you mentioned this briefly, but were you all given some sort of blueprint on how this statue would be taken down?
No, sir. None at all.
Did the mayor come to you all with any ideas of where to put the museum?
Yeah, he reached out to the Charleston Museum, and they have not made a commitment for a couple of reasons I can think of. Number one, they've got some space issues that they're trying to figure out the best space for it, and number two, the press conference. There was quite a bit of graffiti, some egging. People were throwing things at it. It's kind of a bad situation after the press conference last week. And if I was a museum locally, I'd be kind of scared off at that too, because you would hate to accept a piece of history and then have people potentially come in and destroy your facility because they don't agree with the piece of history. So I don't think there's anything imminent at this point. Some things I believe are in the works. But see, the other thing about it, and this is why I say I think that the methodology was wrong. That statue has sat at Marion Square for 124 years. Whether that's right or wrong, we're all saying it was wrong. However, the Washington Light Infantry and Sumter Guards, they own Marion Square, and they lease it to the city for practically nothing. I believe it's for no monetary reason, and they don't get any money out of it. But by us removing our statue from that parcel, we're not going to be able to put anything else in Marion Square without their permission. That statue has been sitting there for 124 years. And now we've removed it, and we've basically granted that parcel back to WLI. So they may choose to put a different statue there of any sort. They can do theoretically whatever they'd like. We also have maybe made it harder on ourselves to be able to use Marion Square as freely as we've been able to in the past, because we did not include WLI and Sumter Guards in the decision-making until after the decision had already been made. And so a lot of people are upset with the methodology of how this was decided. I think everybody universally agrees that John C. Calhoun, his legacy of a white supremacist and a person who believed that slavery was a good, I believe 99.999% of people in this world are appalled by his views. The question was never really about the characteristics of the man, but more of, do we move history? If we move history, is it going to repeat itself? And then if we do decide to move it, how are we going to move it? And all of those factors played in, and I just felt like we did a pretty poor job of getting to the conclusion that we got to.
But Dan, what will be the city's relationship now with the infantry in your mind?
I mean, basically telling somebody that their opinion on the matter is not important or doesn't have any weight. I have no idea. I have a feeling that they're going to be a little bit more reserved in being as nice to us as they have been in the past. And so I would say that I think we as a city have to do a better job of logistically, when we make decisions, including everybody who's involved and showing respect to, the dedication. WLI has given us an amazing meeting space for 175 years at Marion Square, and we're very lucky that we have that spot. But it's technically not owned by the city, and so we need to make sure that we show some respect to WLI.
Let me go back to the money. Did the mayor or anybody within the city of Charleston ever give city council an estimate on how much it would cost to take down the statue?
No, sir. No, sir. No estimates given. Honestly, that all of that is really, it has me still thinking today, because I believe we made the right decision to move it, but I'm just not satisfied with how we did this process. And I hope that we learn from this. There's a reason why it's taken so long to remove that statue. We're going on 14 hours now. It's because it's ancient. It's old. Whenever they put it there, they expected it to be there for a long, long time. And it has been, don't get me wrong. But there's a reason why it's not easy to move it, because it's not meant to be moved. Well, it wasn't meant to be moved whenever the Daughters of Calhoun group gifted it to the city to stay at Marion Square. That second statue, because this is the second incarnation of this, they obviously made sure that it was going to be really tough to move it.
Now, I know you all didn't get any estimates from the mayor and obviously the city of Charleston officials, but then how much would this cost the average taxpayer here in the city of Charleston to take this statue down?
I'm going to say that I would project that moving this statue could be, I'd say at least 50 to 60,000, if not more, closer to 100 maybe. And then storage, wherever we're going to store it, I honestly, I'll tell you, I have no idea where it's going. No idea.
Matter of fact, most museums and academic institutions may or may not use or want the statue. What value will John C. Calhoun add to the mission of the museums and the institutions?
The only thing I can think of why you would want to have John C. Calhoun in your museum is that you can teach people about state rights. He was a big proponent for state rights. He obviously was a vice president twice, so he was one step away from being the president of the United States. But you'd obviously have to dedicate an immense amount of time to his views on slavery, white supremacy, paternalism. The guy was just an old school, stubborn thinker, and just was not relatable to today's times. And so I guess if I'm a museum and I have him in there, my story is, hey, look, this was him as a diplomat, but this was him as a human being, and this was a bad person. He had outdated, illogical views, and I guess it could serve as a reminder for how far we've come as a community and as a people. But if I had the statue, I would probably melt it down and sell it for scrap.
And I know obviously the relationship with the infantry in the city may be murky going forth, maybe is the operative word. And I know that they probably won't allow you all to put anything else at Marion Square. But will the Polk stop be able to stay there in your mind?
Will the what?
The Polk stop.
I honestly have no idea. I really don't. I don't know how this situation is going to impact our relationship with WLI. But I look forward to serving as a city councilman and hopefully making sure that they're satisfied with us and mending that relationship.
I know obviously from reports that I'm getting that they probably won't fight or even sue the city over taking down this monument. What options do they have now?
They have full autonomy in the park now. They own the park, and now they have a space back that they haven't had for 124 years. So theoretically, they could, put something else up or, do with it as they please. They now have a piece of the park that they didn't have before. And so, maybe they can put another statue up of somebody else, or theoretically they could really do anything. They have the whole park now.
And, let me ask you this too. why didn't Charleston City Council, in your mind, voted to allow the citizens of Charleston to decide this?
That's a great question. Usually, if when you ask a question like that, well, why don't you let the citizens vote? The right answer is usually because we're scared of the outcome. You never know what the outcome could be. If it was a split decision, it would make it even tougher to bring the statue down. And you know, I personally think it's a good idea to have some referendums on the ballot so that people can vote on some of these key issues, especially when we're talking about moving something that has, you know, is 5 or 6 times the lifespan of me, just the statue. You know, I felt uncomfortable at times voting yesterday as a 25-year-old who, you know, was born in 1995, whereas Mr. Calhoun died in 1850. But ultimately, I took my personal feelings out of the equation, and I voted on behalf of the individuals who walk by that statue every day and have hurt in their heart. And I voted for them.
What's in your heart, Harry?
You know, I would love it if we could find a way to get people back together again. You know, I feel like these last few weeks have been so divisive. You know, it all started with, I mean, you could probably go all the way back to Ahmaud Arbery, and then George Floyd, and then Charleston protests that turned into riots, and then the city on Sunday morning trying to come together and clean up, and then this Calhoun statue the last couple of weeks. It's been very divisive at times, and then Corona in the background as well. These last few months have been very, very difficult for everybody. But we've got to find some ways to get people back together again and narrow the gaps of inequality. Number one, I think this new commission on racial conciliation that I'm very blessed and lucky to be a part of, I think we're going to do a lot of good in bringing people together. But we've got to find a way to show the nation and the world that Charleston is always going to be different, and we're going to handle things differently. I said this last night. We do our best when we have adversity. Charleston always rises to the top during times of crisis. This is just another example where people have been hurt, tensions have been high, but we always find a way as a city to bring people together. And this is no exception. We're going to have to work extra hard to do that. And so my heart today and tonight, every night when I go to bed, all I'm thinking about is what can I do to try to bring people together again.
You talk about hurt. You talk about obviously the challenges that, you know, what's been facing us recently with coronavirus. With this statue being taken down probably later on today, will this affect the city's tourism?
Not as bad as COVID. You know, this year has been a time where tourism has been lacking drastically. And I think as long as John C. Calhoun is in a museum, it will not negatively impact tourism. I don't know too many people that come to Charleston specifically to stare up at Mr. Calhoun. But as long as his story can be told in a historical setting, I think people in the historical community will be satisfied.
Now that the statue is coming down, what can the city do to help as far as, you know, affordable housing, equity, education, and, you know, helping out minorities?
Well, I can tell you this, affordable housing is definitely something that we talk about at every single meeting. We've created more units of affordable housing in the last 4 or 5 years than we have in the history of this city. We'll continue to do so. That $20 million bond referendum from 2017 has gone a long way in creating affordable housing. In terms of education, you know, I don't know what a classroom is going to look like come the fall. I think school is going to be sporadic. I think we're going to have a lot of teachers home So we have to make sure that all of our residents have all of the resources they need to be able to give their kids an education. You know, we have the school district has done a good job of having buses go around to different communities that have Wi-Fi, providing school lunch. We need to continue to help in any way we can. The city has teamed up with the early college program over at Trident Tech's Palmer campus. We need to continue with that. You know, one thing that I would love to see is we need to do a better job of getting our youth sports programs going again. Stony Field, their renovations, that's going to be big. But, you know, we use Stony Field. We wear it out. We use it and use it and use it. We got to show it some love, and I'm glad we finally are. You know, one area of town that I'm very, very interested in is the Joseph Floyd Manor. And I know that some members of county council and Representative Wendell Gilliard and others, Senator Marlon Kempson, have been over there trying to help that situation. But I don't know if you've been over there, Quintin, but it is rough. And it's a lot of units in that building. Right. So we need to do whatever we can to help the people that are living in the Joseph Floyd Manor. And we're going to continue to have these conversations. I'm going to serve on a panel next Tuesday night with several other local leaders that'll be live streamed for ABC News 4, talking about how we can narrow the gap of inequality in Charleston. And this town hall is going to be from 5 to 7 next Tuesday night, and we're going to talk about affordable housing, education, and many other components. You know, I've always said that John C. Calhoun taking the statue down, to me, is a cheap thrill. It's what we do after, and it's whether or not we actually finally put an end to the ideals that he stood for. And racial inequality is something that he was proud of, but it's time that we as a city get past that and we work together to narrow the gap and really give our citizens a better quality of life. To me, that's what quality of life is. Sure, the flooding and the infrastructure, that's a big part of it, don't get me wrong. But the day-to-day life, the housing, the jobs, the education, you can't get more quality of life than that.
And while I have you here, Councilman Griffin, let me ask you this. Obviously, and you just mentioned this about obviously just a few seconds ago, but State Representative Wendell Gilliard, as you know, he wrote a letter to the governor basically asking Charlestonians to basically wear masks as a requirement. Should that be a requirement here in Charleston?
You know, we're going to vote on that tomorrow night at City Council. I'm not going to vote for it. I think it's unconstitutional for us to tell people that they have to wear a mask. I can understand that wearing a mask is the right thing to do. When I go out in public, I wear a mask, just out of personal preference. However, I'm not going to tell another human being that they have to wear a mask. I think, honestly, I believe it's unconstitutional. And so I will not be supporting that. However, if the vote does pass, I will be in compliance with that. I feel like it's hard to tell people you can't wear a mask or that you can wear a mask. You have to wear a mask, and that if you don't, we're going to arrest you or we're going to write you a ticket. But whenever we had a riot going on down on King Street, you know, we didn't make any arrests then. You know, I mean, it doesn't make sense to me how you're going to police people wearing a mask, but you're not going to police a riot on King Street 2 weeks ago. I think our city has to get back to the basics and figure out what our priorities are.
When you look back at that riot to right now, who dropped the ball?
Well, we're going to find out because I'll let you be the first to know this. I penned a letter to Charleston County and their attorney asking them to go ahead and release the audio, the police audio from that night. I have begged and begged the mayor and our police department to give me some answers, and I haven't gotten any. And Charleston County is gonna release it. I have a feeling, and I have a feeling I'll have it pretty quick. So that letter went out to Charleston County and the Charleston County Council today, asking them to help me get my hands on that audio, because I believe the public deserves to know what exactly happened on May 30th, and if there's going to be any discreetness to that, I have no problem asking SLED to investigate it as well.
Has the mayor and the police chief been transparent about the riots?
No. Keyword, no. Simple answer. How on earth did we take a vote and have that statue down within a matter of minutes? And we've been begging for weeks to find out about what happened during the riots, and we haven't gotten any answers. It just doesn't make sense to me. I am happy that the statue came down, but at the same time, I don't think it should take weeks in order for us to find out why one of the worst nights in the history of our city happened. It's been long enough. It's time to talk about it.
And I would like to get Mayor Tecklenburg back on Quintin's close-ups. We'll see what happens. But also, the police chief, Reynolds is always welcome on here as well. So I like talking to him as well. So I hope to have one of them on Quintin's close-ups soon.
Well, I appreciate that. And hopefully by the time you do, you'll have the audio tape so that you can ask them some really good questions.
Tough questions.
Yes, sir. Always tough, but always fair.
Sure.
That should be the motto of Quintin's close-up.
Get like a T-shirt.
Yeah. Always tough, always fair.
Quintin's
there you
go. I thank you for that. And Councilman Griffin, thank you for your time again here on Quintin's Close-Ups, and I hope to have you back soon.
Hey, you'll always be my favorite interviewer. Always.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.